Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongeese.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Welcome in. 'Twas the night before the NFL draft, and all through DawgsHQ, Palmer Toms, Jake Rowe, Wes Blankenship, and eventually Jake Roos lined up to talk to you. Welcome in. We are going to do a little draft of our own tonight, kind of a different format. We each wrote our predictions about where certain dogs will go in the draft. Certainly some first-round guys, some mid-round guys, late-round mailman perhaps. But what we're going to do is, because these stories are behind a paywall over at DawgsHQ.com, we're not going to give away our whole deal. We're not going to just put it all out there for the world to see, because that defeats the purpose of it being behind a paywall. But we'll give you a taste. We'll give you a little appetizer, and we'll let you know about some key guys and where we think they're going to go. Now, the way this works, if Jake Rowe talks about Jalen Carter, Palmer and I can't talk about Jalen Carter. We got to pick somebody new. So it makes it our own special draft. But I'm going to start with Palmer Toms and give you the floor first, man.
Oof.
Pick one guy. Doesn't have to be your first round pick. Doesn't have to be your first overall guy. Pick one guy that you're very passionate and confident is going to go in the spot that you predicted in your piece today.
Man, you're putting me on the spot here. I will go with Nolan Smith. And I've got him in the first round and in the top 10 picks. In my piece, I laid out who I thought those 10 would be in no particular order. And it does include one of his Georgia teammates. I'm sure you all can guess who that is. But I think Nolan slips in there. 8, 9, 10 all kind of makes sense. If the Falcons want to make friends in Athens, they'll take Nolan Smith at 8. But the Bears and Eagles.
We all know they're really dead set on doing that, right, Palmer?
Yeah, exactly. That's their biggest priority, is making friends in Athens. But the Bears and the Eagles at 9 and 10 also makes sense. And because there's 3 spots where I think he can end up. As much as the Titans fan in me would love for him to be available at 11, don't think that he will be there. I think that he goes top 10 and probably on the latter half of that top 10 because of how quarterback crazy this draft is. And, you've got 2 really talented edge players there in Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson that are probably going to go early. But I think Nolan joins the party there as well as a top 10 pick.
What do you think about all this buzz that Nolan's been getting of late? We kind of talked about it with Roos when we got together on Sunday, when Jake Rowe's internet was buried by a avalanche of excuses. What do you make of this buzz? It hasn't slowed down. Daniel Jeremiah kind of started this thing, and now we're looking at Nolan Smith potentially being in the top 15 picks, and to me it still seems a little bit high.
Well, I mean, to me, what it comes down to is you're looking at a guy that was the number 1 overall player coming out of high school. That is largely based on talent and athleticism. He showed that off at the NFL Combine. Again, that's based on just sheer athleticism and what you can do in shorts and a t-shirt. But I think when you turn on the film, you can also see an impactful player when he's been healthy. Obviously, he wasn't healthy the last 7 games of this year. And I think because of that, I mean, coming into this 2022 season, we saw him early in these drafts, maybe not top 10, but as a first round type player. And he played like a first round player through that first half of the season, had 7 tackles for loss in 8 games. After being shut out in the season opener, had 1 in each of the following 7 before being hurt against Florida. And he was off to one hell of a start in that game. So who knows? He could have ended up with more than just that 1 tackle for loss there. Was a top 5 tackler on a defense that had 5 first-round picks last year, is likely to have at least 1, 2, maybe 3 more this year. That defense was super talented, and to be a top 5 tackler, to be a leader among those guys says a lot about what he is. And that word leader, I think, is what sticks out to me with Nolan, is the kind of player that you're getting with him. With a lot of these guys, there's some questions. You're not sure about this, you're not sure about that. One thing you can be sure about with Nolan Smith is that you are going to get somebody that's going to represent your organization incredibly well on the field, off the field, and down on the line. When you're talking about a guy like somebody with a character concern or whatever, and teams are saying, oh, well, we need veteran leadership in here, guys to kind of keep that person in check. Nolan Smith can be one of those guys. So because of that, I think teams see a lot of value in him, and I think that he goes in the top 10.
I just go back to a couple things. That Florida game in 2021 really did show like how impactful Nolan can be across the board. He had the pick, he had that huge strip right by the goal line there, and that was the game to me when I saw, okay, this is that number 1 overall pick out of high school. Not that he hadn't flashed before that, not that he hadn't made plays before that, but that was big boy football right there. And then I want to go back to what you said about him being a leader, Palmer. I know people are going to want to plug their ears when I say this person's name, but I heard that a lot about Tim Tebow when he was going into the NFL too. And it's a different ball game when you go from college being a leader, a rah-rah guy. In the NFL, that doesn't really matter to the extent that it does in college. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter at all, and not that it doesn't matter at all to GMs, but it's almost an expectation and not as much we're bringing this guy in because we expect him to have the troops rally around him in the locker room. It's a bonus, it's a plus, but if you're not that guy, it doesn't always set you back necessarily.
But Nolan is not like, he is a rah-rah guy, and that is it. But when people talk about Nolan, they're not really talking about rah-rah. They're talking about a 238-pound guy who, listen, I was watching a video earlier today and watching how they pull around on him in counter, and how it's, he's giving up 100 pounds and he just snaps the dude. I mean, he just lights him up. He's fearless. He's tough. Throwing tampons up his nose after getting his face mask caved in and his nose broken and going back out there. Like, you're made of some different stuff. And that's what I like about Nolan. I see the things, right? I see, Wes, I get your point on the production and stuff like that. And people that are saying like, I just don't see it. I don't see it. But the thing with Nolan is he is a great football player. And I think people saw that on film, that, listen, he may not, Georgia didn't turn him loose to rush the passer a lot. They didn't treat him like a designated pass rusher. He would, when Trayvon Walker was on the roster or Azeez Ojulari was on the roster, he would set picks on 3rd down. He would drop into coverage on 3rd down. He would do it willingly. He would do it well. That's the leadership quality there. But then when you do see them turn him loose, he makes plays. He's an off-ball guy. He can be an on-ball guy. I'm not worried at all about production. And I agree with what Daniel Jeremiah said. It's something that I said way back. I don't know if he'll ever be this good, because this may be the best defensive player in the NFL right now. But you can use him like you use Micah Parsons. I mean, you can play him off-ball. You can cover with him. He can spy quarterbacks. He can blitz. I think he's a stud, and I think he's going to be a very good NFL player, just because I think, listen, if he's made of Kevlar, man, and I'm not talking about just from a toughness standpoint. I mean, anybody can get injured. I'm talking about, like, he will put his face in the fan if it's going to help you win ball games. And I always go back to one of the most raw and real moments I've ever seen out of a player was, I believe, when he was talking about the SEC championship game and how emotional he was about it. And he said, man, I've never won anything. And that's all I want to do is win something. And, next thing you know, he's got 2 national championship rings. And, God knows how good Georgia could have been down the stretch defensively if he wasn't hurt last year.
Yeah, and they might not have that second one without that leadership that we talk about. All right, I'm going to go next, and it's going to force Jake Rowe to talk about a specific guy. I'm going to say that I am confident that Stetson Bennett does not go before the first 5 rounds in the NFL draft. I had him going late, and that is not because I don't think Stetson deserves to go sooner. I just think that the mountain of evidence against him, the mountain of criticism against him will ultimately be too much for Stetson Bennett to overcome in the eyes of general managers. And that's okay. And I think that works out for Stetson Bennett because we've seen it work out for him before. It's the measurables. It's the lack of the eye-popping arm. And if they don't see that, they haven't really been paying attention. But let's face it, he's not hitting the roof of the House of Pain like Anthony Richardson hit the roof of his facility and Bryce Young hit the roof of his. It's those little things that are going to set Stetson Bennett back, and it's nothing that he hasn't overcome before. I just don't understand how you can let him go that deep, let him fall that far. I just think that it will happen. I think we've seen it happen time and time again with the quarterback position. People want as much of a sure thing as possible unless they're just really willing to risk it all. And I think that's going to happen to Stetson. Now, what I also predicted is that the nature of the league is so violent, it's so painful, it's so aggressive that a starting quarterback rarely makes it wire to wire without sitting out a series, a play, a half, a game, or a string of games. And I do believe that even if Stetson does go that late in the draft, I think he's going to have his chance to once again prove all the doubters wrong. I'm not even going to say haters. I don't think people hate him. I think they just want to see what he can do at the NFL level. And you don't really get a mulligan. You don't get a warm-up round when you draft a quarterback. So that's why I ultimately think he's going to continue to tumble. We saw Jake Fromm kind of tumble a few years back. And Stetson Bennett, even though he won the championships, maybe has more going against him just in the size department. And I guess to some extent the off-the-field stuff. But now that time has passed, I don't know how much that arrest in Dallas will really be held against them. It's just some of the other stuff that adds up to unknown commodities about Stetson Bennett. And that's why I think he'll fall to the 6th round.
The biggest thing to me with Stetson, and I do agree with you that I don't think he's going to go in the top 5 rounds. But, somebody could take a flyer on him because of his proven ability to win games and to get the ball to playmakers. And he's athletic too. That's one big thing that he had that he has going for him that Jake Fromm didn't necessarily have going for him. Neither of them have, a cannon for an arm. But Stetson is able to make plays with his legs when things break down. And I think that's a big part of football these days is the ability to make something out of nothing. Whether that's, escaping pressure and throwing it away or, picking up a first down and moving the chains with your legs. So, for me, I think, listening to the Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, all those, pundits speak about Stetson and what they think he could be. I thought the comparison to Colt McCoy was really interesting. Somebody that's been a backup, kind of like you said, Wes, that has proven that he can come in there and win games when called upon because things haven't gone, perfectly with the starters in front of him. I think I think Stetson can be a great backup that gives his team a chance, a really good chance to keep playing good football when he's forced onto the field.
I think when he gets his chance, he's going to make some NFL defenders look silly. I do think that. I just don't know if he's going to get his chance as early as maybe a lot of Dawgs fans think that he should in the NFL draft anyway.
I mean, Jake Fromm got a start, right? Didn't he start one
I
game?
think you got 2.
Yeah, so
You got a couple.
wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's the thing that I keep going back to is Stetson and makes it unpredictable is it's that whole like, hey, is the team going to fall in love with you type thing? But it's also once you get past that third round, once you get to day 3, I don't think they really care if they like you. They'll take a flyer on you. You know, they'll go get you. And I think somebody's going to like him. I picked him to go in the 5th round. I do know that. The guy I am most confident in my pick is Darnell Washington. I have Darnell Washington being a top 50 pick. I'm not ruling it out of him being a first-round guy. I think that somebody would be smart to do that. But I think in Darnell Washington, you're getting a similar guy to Nolan Smith on the offensive side of the ball. And here's why I say that is you're talking about a multifaceted football player. Are the massive numbers there? No, they're not. But are the traits there to help you win in a lot of different ways? Absolutely. I mean, Darnell is a great blocker. He's a great he's a guy that can kind of give you options in short yardage and red zone. He's so good after the catch for a massive human being. I mean, I don't know that I've ever witnessed a big, traditional tight end that I've ever thought, man, he's just not going to get tackled by first or second guy usually. I mean, it's usually going to take a couple dudes to get him on the ground. He's got a lot of Rob Gronkowski, qualities. You look at the measurables from their combines, very similar. Darnell's faster. Darnell's, a little quicker. Gronkowski's a little bit more explosive as far as a leaper goes. Darnell's got bigger hands. He's probably a bigger guy. There's just a lot of different aspects there. And I tell you what, man, Todd Monken, with the, right there with the Ravens, it would not at all shock me if the Ravens picked him in the first round, because I know how much. Do the Ravens have a first round pick?
Yeah, 22, I think.
Yeah, that may be a little bit high.
And they've got Mark Andrews. They don't necessarily need a tight end.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, Todd Monken loves this cat, loves him. Like obviously he should love Brock Bowers. Everybody knows about my Brock Bowers man crush, but Darnell Washington, Darnell Washington has a big fan in Todd Monken, and Mark Andrews or not. Mark Andrews can't do the stuff Darnell Washington can do from a physicality standpoint, and that's a good fit too. If you're talking about a run heavy offense, they think they might get Lamar back or whatever. I think it's a good pick.
Well, the guy I thought you were going to talk about was Jalen Carter, and I think that we all are pretty bullish on him, regardless of yet another shot at this guy coming in late.
I left Carter off so that we could get 5 to 10 talking about this.
Yeah, you're brilliant, and that's producing on the fly right there from Jake Rowe. So let's talk about that, guys. Is this a conspiracy? Is this info wars right now? Is someone really just trying to make sure Jalen Carter doesn't make it out of the top 5 or top 10? This is like, maybe it's just because I'm so close to it covering the team. I don't really know if I can remember a guy having this much flack continually come up from a place where he was the number 1 overall projected pick. Leading into the actual draft night. This has been quite the slide, at least if you're paying attention to all the PR buzz on Jalen Carter.
I was talking with Bark After Dark alum Seth Emerson earlier today about this, and we agreed. We were like, man, this is just so weird that we haven't heard a thing. Like, I haven't heard, like, outside of the Missouri incident, right? The little, Missouri incident, Connor Riley caught it on film, I believe, put it up there for Dog Nation. It was really good work by him. I was up in the press box, probably eating some ice cream or something. But he was down there on the field, and Jalen started that whole deal, right? He was trying to kind of egg them on a little bit. No punches were thrown, nothing got out of hand. It was just like a little shouting match and guys getting between each other and all that stuff, and then it was over. I mean, 30 seconds. Well, my God. This man looks like Tango and Cash. Right?
Look at the beard already growing back.
This dude looks like Kurt Russell's brother from Tango and Cash. Put this man in Gen Pop right now. But no, that was all Jalen. But other than that, I got nothing. Like, I mean, teammates raved about him. They came to his defense the first time Todd McShay said something about it. They all they were like on the Johnny on the spot. Like, dude, JC's one of my favorite guys. The coaches praised him for coming back. I mean, was there maybe some inconsistent effort or some point? I don't know. I've heard that, I've heard that, there were some off-season workouts where you would be surprised at some of the offensive linemen that may have gotten the better of him, but he never was the kind of guy that without pads, he wasn't the same guy as he was with pads. And we've seen what he is with pads, and newsflash, you wear them in the sport. You really do. You use them. So I think he should be judged on what he does with the pads and the helmet on. But I never heard a bad word about him, and still haven't. I've asked. Nobody has, nothing that I know about. So what I'm concerned about here, or what I'm wondering about here, is will Todd McShay ever be able to get anything out of the Georgia staff ever again? Because if they told him something and he's maybe making a mountain out of a molehill, I don't know. Like, he could just have better connections. Like I put on Twitter earlier today, and I'm not saying Todd McShay is doing this every year. These unattributed quotes, these sources quotes, these off the records quotes, right? That I've never spoken to anybody off the record that I was like, hey, I'm going to put you on the record and get a long quote from you. But you're really off the record. That's not how that works. So these long 200-word quotes of really descriptive information, they just get juicier and juicier and bigger every
the one
year.
from Bob McGinn this week, who runs a Substack, apparently has some NFL inside info from time to time, said that he doesn't know if Jalen Carter actually loves football. I mean, ask the people who have made who Jalen Carter made hate football when he played against them, if he loves football or not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not a total dedication to the game, and it is a mountain out of a molehill situation. But to say that he may or may not love football, that one to me was just eye roll inducing. What's up, Jake?
I bet Hendon Hooker thinks he hates something.
He hates Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, he hates something.
Roos, what do you make of this Jalen Carter situation? You think the Falcons will actually take him if he's still there?
I do. I pray for it every night. I hope that that's what happens. I told you weeks ago that I hope the Falcons are the ones putting all this buzz in Todd McShay's ear. I hope that they're the ones telling Bob McGinn the kid doesn't love football, and I hope that he falls to Atlanta and they take him. Because listen, Terry Fontenot said the other day that they're going best available player, and that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. To me, if Jalen Carter is at that spot, he's going to be the best available player. There's a chance that he's the best available player in the draft. So, I mean, it is what it is, man. I mean, I sure hope so. But same thing as Rowe, man. I don't. The stuff that we're hearing on him is odd. It's not something that it's not a constant refrain that I've ever heard. His is not a name, I mean, there are guys that you hear things about that are not positive and, would make you maybe question how much do they love football. That Carter's never one of those guys that's been mentioned, man. And simultaneously, you've heard some really good things come out about him that you haven't heard about other guys, right? I mean, the Weston Wallace story, talking about buying his lunch and all that. You could say maybe that was timing based on what other people had said, and they were trying to do a little damage control there. But at any rate, I think Jalen Carter, if I were a GM and my job was on the line, Jalen Carter is a guy I would probably push the chips in on, because I think, listen, money changes people. If you're worried about some things, and I understand too, and I said this, I think, on the board one day, it changes. A lot of people change when something really profound happens in their life. And I think that Jalen Carter experienced something really profound with the accident and on the racing and all of that. You hope that that's a wake-up call for a young man like that. And in a lot of cases, I think that things like that are what spur change in people. And so, we haven't had a chance to see Jalen Carter on the field or practicing since that time. And how does that affect things? I like to believe that it will spur him to be the best man that he can be.
Yeah, there's no guarantees in any of this. And us saying that we haven't heard anything about Jalen Carter's character doesn't mean that we're guaranteeing he's going to turn into a world beater at the NFL level. It's just, I don't know. I don't hear nearly as much as Jake Rowe hears, but I do know that we hear stuff. We hear significant stuff just being around the tornado that is this team and this business. And I've never heard anything about it. It was that one fight at Missouri, that one little dust up, man. That was it. And that's kind of the crazy thing about all this.
And these are big, strong, physical people. Fights are going to happen to some degree. I mean, there's an aggressive nature to the game, man.
Yeah,
you've got adrenaline flowing.
You don't want the choir boys on your NFL defensive roster. That's the cliche.
Yeah.
But one of my buddies played defense at VMI. Okay. He didn't go to the NFL. So I'm not saying that he's an NFL stud or anything. But he said something to me one day that has always stuck with me. And he said, if you are going to play defense in the NFL, you have to have something wrong with you at a cognitive, mental, social level within reason that most people don't have. Because you do, man. You are going out there and trying to hurt people. And that's your job. And if some of this stuff, it does just seem like, why are we so surprised even or so concerned about any little element or inkling or clue that Jalen Carter may have been a pain in the ass? Yeah, this probably makes him better at his job if he is.
I'm with you 100%.
Rhett Womack says if Carter falls to 10, there will be 9 teams that regret this draft.
Sure.
I don't think that's too far off base. If the Falcons don't draft Nolan or Carter, if they're available, then I'm done with the Falcons, Uncle Glenn Hartley says. I feel like there's someone that says that every year, though.
To me, the ideal situation for the Falcons is to trade that pick, trade back into like 15, 16, and go get Broderick Jones. Pick up, get a couple picks, get a couple late picks, or maybe you get a third or something like that. Trade back and
believe it or not, there's some fodder out there about him right now. Apparently, somebody was talking about the Titans today, maybe taking him, and there was
Palmer
comparison. There was some comparing him to Isaiah Wilson as far as immaturity issues, and I'm just kind of like, what the hell's going on here, man?
I mean, that's feels like a lazy comparison, just because. Yeah. Hey, Titans guy, Georgia offensive lineman, who comes to mind? Isaiah Wilson. What wouldn't surprise me, Roos, you mentioned the Falcons possibly trading back out of 8. What wouldn't surprise me all too much, especially if one of the quarterbacks that the Titans, have their eyes on, is there. Arthur Smith, and who worked for the Titans, was their OC for a while, knows Mike Vrabel, getting a deal done between those two. Because I don't think the Falcons are going quarterback.
Y'all are going to love Anthony Richardson in Nashville, buddy. That's all I got to say about the Titans, baby. Tighten up.
Hey, I'm a believer in the theory that Vrabel got in his fellow Buckeyes ear and told him to tank his S2 Q2 test or whatever it was.
Yeah. Hey, CJ, you'll love Music City. Come on. These honky-tonk bars are fun, man. Yeah, this quarterback carousel the past week has been impossible to keep up with.
It's not, and I feel like people are going to lose their jobs betting on some of the quarterbacks in this draft. I really.
Oh yeah.
So and while we talk about the quarterbacks in this draft, I saw graphic, and I think On3 put it out, but the 23 quarterbacks versus the 24 quarterbacks. Which group would y'all take? Because
the one with Caleb Williams in it.
I mean, okay, that's one guy though.
Sure.
Do you think
to me, there's only 2 surefire guys in this draft.
Is there more than one surefire guy? Do we think Drake May is surefire?
Drake May's gonna have a lot of people.
I know who does think Drake May is surefire.
I do too.
The woman who gave birth to Palmer Thombs.
The Tar Heel
She's a
family.
UNC alum, and she is big on some Drake May, brother.
Tomahawk Dog says you came in late with extra study and bringing the juice.
I love
Bruce.
the draft. I'm obsessed with
The
the
Roost
draft,
juice.
man. The Roost juice. Roost juice is actually what I call my hunch punch when I make it.
Yeah. Me and Jake Roos watched the first NFL draft. Jake Roos and I watched together. We made some nachos. We made some pulled pork nachos that I still think about them sometimes. They're the best nachos I've ever had to this day.
But
Did you do the pork too, or did you just pick up the pork? And
no,
then
I
make
smoked.
the nachos?
We smoked the butt. We smoked
Top
the
to
butt
bottom.
up. We injected it with the seasonings and everything.
Mhm.
Spent a lot of time on it. And then we put like a big pan thing, cheese dip, then actual real cheese. A little bit of cheese, a little bit of onion.
Is this what you were going to make us tomorrow night, Jake?
No. I was just gonna do straight barbecue. I know you, shocker. You know I don't like barbecue.
Jack Black and Saving Silverman. Nachos are stuck together. It's still one nacho. If you are on Breaking
What a movie!
Tea,
What an underrated movie.
oh, it's one of the more quotable.
Stay away from
underrated
women.
films.
All they want your man juice.
Judith, Breaking Tea is the place to get that new Georgia T-shirt or hoodie that you need. We're celebrating back-to-back national championships, guys. If you don't have a brand new T-shirt to commemorate the occasion, then what are you doing? You're going to forget about it. You're going to forget that it even happened. Not if you wear a T-shirt or a hoodie from Breaking Tea. You're going to be half asleep like I am at all hours of the day right now at the newborn, but you're going to look in the mirror brushing your teeth or wondering about that ingrown neck hair, and then you're going to see that T-shirt, and you're going to say, oh, yeah, Georgia won back-to-back national championships. Check out the link in this episode description. It's always there, and get yourself a brand new T-shirt from Breaking Tea. Jake Rowe, you weren't on the show on Sunday when we talked a little bit
me, please.
about CJ Stroud. Glad you got your internet back. But
If
one
it
guy,
was ever even really out.
Oh, it was out, brother.
It
I
was
had
out.
I had crying kids.
I drove by his house later that night and saw that the whole family was just melting down. Just cruised by the window just to make sure that no one was on the internet, and no one was.
Is that why you went to the to the farm with the alpacas and?
No, that happened. Yeah, I guess that did happen before, but no, we had that planned.
Great
What?
photos, by the way. Incredible.
Yeah.
Can we
Really
have a
some
quick-
of the finest. This one where you're pointing at the alpaca. I mean, you're like calling that thing down, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't like look me in the eye. I was
What
trying
a
to turn that
coward.
alpaca into a man.
What
Don't
a
they spit at
coward.
you?
He wouldn't look me in the eye. But I tell you what, man, they had this 3-year-old camel, and 3 years old for a camel is apparently like a very juvenile camel, and he acted it. He acted his age because there was like a little mini horse in there with him, and he was just biting the hell out of him, and like goofing off. And then at one point, I put my hand up there to feed him a carrot. He eats the carrot, and then he tries to bite my arm. And I'm like, whoa, dude, calm down. And then my wife's not paying attention, and he tries to bite her twice. Like he's got her over there like, ah! Like she's just like trying to get out of get out of the way. And he's got her by the shirt. It's pretty hilarious. But apparently he's still very gentle. It's pretty incredible. But
Juvenile camel playing at Go Bar this weekend in Athens.
good band name. Good band name.
That's like something Zach Thrower was in.
Juvenile camel.
That
Short
sounds like a petting zoo from hell, Jake Rowe.
Oh, I mean, you should take your kids. It's not too far.
No, I think I know which one it is.
Half Moon.
Yeah, it looks
Call
like
them out by name.
it reminds me of the. I have a feeling they're not on the internet, but if they are, we'd love for them to sponsor.
Hey, so here's the
show.
deal. They've got a couple lemurs there. Here's the deal. They've got a couple lemurs, And I don't know if you've seen the movie. What movie is it, Wes? That cartoon movie?
Madagascar.
Madagascar. Yeah, that's it. And the one of them, he talks with like an accent. I don't want to try and do it, but I do it. But the guy who runs the place, I'm sitting there looking at the lemur, and he comes up and he says his name is Julian, but he sounds exactly like the lemur from Madagascar. I freaked out. I was looking around. I was like, did that lemur just say that? It was unreal.
I'm telling you, when I drive past this place, and I think it's the same place, there's like 4 or 5 like 1980 something Mercedes sitting out front.
That's it. 100%.
And it makes me wonder if this place is run by the gypsies from Snatch. Like, is
like
Brad
Dags?
Pitt gonna roll out?
You like Dags?
Yeah. Like a Packers?
Yeah. It's gonna be my.
This show does it. This show really has it all, doesn't it?
All right. This is the pre-NFL draft show, damn it. Ro,
Hey, a lemur in round 1 makes sense.
when you weren't on the show, we talked about CJ Stroud's plummet, okay? And we've talked about Anthony Richardson on here before. I think Bryce Young is the guy that a lot of us kind of believe could be the surefire dude. But Will Levis, your guy, the Kentucky Wildcat, has gotten all shredded up. I guess he stopped putting mayo in his coffee. And suddenly, the odds have him placed at, if not number 1, the next quarterback to go off the board at the draft. What is happening with the Wildcats quarterback?
Tell you what, man, I pity the fool. I pity the fool who makes that mistake, because not only does this man put mayonnaise in his coffee, but he eats bananas with the peel on. Next thing you know,
that's the worst one.
Next thing you know, you're going to tell me he eats the rind out of pecans, and then I'm going to say he's basically dead.
He eats he eats apple cores.
Yeah, the only way you can eat the banana peel or rinds out of a pecan is if you're functionally just not with us anymore. The DMT's been released in your brain naturally, and you're gone. I mean, that's the only way. That's the way I guess the only way I can put it, because those are 2 of the worst tasting things on the planet. But yeah, I just don't think Will Levis is worth crap as a quarterback. I mean, I think he's a really good dude. I hope he hangs around. I hope he makes so much money, it's unreal. But I just don't think he's any good. And I mean,
I get why he's sexy though, right? I mean, he's big. He's got his arm is strong.
Pause.
All right, look, if that was the qualification for an NFL draft pick, though, like, think about the guys.
I think it's a league of
no,
comparison.
Jake. I want you to think about sexy guys that would have been drafted high.
Jake Roos is a bicep guy.
But it's a comparison league, and I think a lot of people see Josh Allen in Will Levis, and I don't think that's true, but I think that's where the people are coming from, and they're saying, look at this, it's like what was the guy the Broncos draft? Well, they've drafted a couple of them, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler.
I felt the same way about Paxton Lynch that I do about Will Levis.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: I can understand Will Levis where the Broncos took Paxton Lynch, which I think was like the 22nd pick, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
A little further back. I could understand that a lot more than I could. I mean, listen, anybody who takes that guy at number 1, and I'm not going to degrade him or anything like that, because I know he works hard and he plays hard. I get all that, and I got a lot of respect for him as a football player. He's just not a good quarterback.
Let me ask you this:
he basically handed Ole Miss a game.
Let me ask you this: better NFL prospect, Will Levis or Anthony Richardson?
I'm going to go with Levis, and it's just because I saw him make fewer mistakes against Georgia. Now, what he did against Ole Miss, that was pretty putrid. But at least he stood up and turned in a decent performance against the Dawgs the last couple seasons. Anthony Richardson can't say that.
Well, I will say Anthony Richardson did kind of catch fire in the third quarter.
He had like a 50-something QBR, man. He was terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't great overall, and he was awful that first game. First game was his first start, and that's not the team you really want to deal with in your first start.
That's true.
I mean, you look back at that team in that first start. I mean, we could go on and on about this. There were 6 first-round draft picks, 7 first-round draft picks if Nolan Smith goes.
Time's a flat
8
circle. Who really
if
made
were
his
to
day
go.
hell? Nolan Smith.
Yeah. So I think if I had to pick, if you were just like, all right, dude, you got to take one of these guys. I think I would. I think I might take Anthony Richardson.
I'd take him.
I would too, because of the tools.
Yeah, because I might need a middle linebacker or something.
The ceiling is higher, and I'm not talking about the one that he hit at his pro day.
Well, but Palmer.
I mean, that was pretty high, though.
Week, man.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of either guy. Like,
No,
it would probably, if you told me like, all right, listen, pick one of these guys, and if they pan out, you can be a billionaire. Take $500,000 and go home. I'd take my $500,000 and go home.
Sure.
Because I don't think I don't think either one of them. I wouldn't bet $500,000 on either one of them to be good. But yeah, I think here's the reason why. I think Anthony Richardson gives you a Terrell Pryor type athlete who may be able to flip over and do some other stuff for you at some point. Listen, he's got a cannon. Both of them do. But I would probably take Richardson just because I think he's the better athlete. And, worst come to worst, he can be a gimmick backup quarterback for you who can run some red zone and, be the NFL version of the Belldozer.
100%.
I just think you're pot committed on hating Will Levis.
I don't hate him at all. I love him. I think he's a swell young man. I just don't think he's a good quarterback. And I don't think Anthony Richardson's a good quarterback. I would give them both you're bad at being quarterback grades. I would give them both that grade. But, I just think, Anthony Richardson gives you an out.
All right, let's add Hendon Hooker into this mix.
Hendon Hooker, 100%. I'm drafting him over both.
You would take a 25-year-old Hendon Hooker coming off of an ACL injury over both these.
And sleep well at night over it too.
One
of my favorite things about Hendon Hooker is I was watching this video the other day of Georgia beating Tennessee, and I swear to God, Tennessee fans just do not understand how lucky they were to get that rain. But Jamon Dumas-Johnson flies up and unloads on Hendon Hooker, and he kind of bounces off of him. And, he still comes back and makes the tackle. Like, he bounces off of him. He gets up on then he slides around, gets up on his knees and tackles him again. He knocks Hendon Hooker off balance. But I don't know, man. I think Hendon Hooker's
guys bounce off of Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, but Anthony Richardson sucks. And
there we go. Now we can pull the claws out.
Let's chop some wood. I'm going to chop some wood. Not really, but I do want to get us into chopping wood. Slim in the comments. Welcome, Slim. Slim says, dude says pecan like he's from Maine. Is that how people in Maine say pecan? That's how I say it, but
that's how people who live on, who grew up near Main Street in Pearson, Georgia say it.
Yeah. He's talking about Maine with an E though. I figured in Maine they'd say pecan or peckin or something. I don't know how they'd say it up there. Pecan.
Basically Canada.
You say pecan where I'm from, dude. Sorry.
Yeah, that surprised me. I didn't know that's how they said it.
I've never drunk a can of Coke. Sorry.
Can of pop. Let's chop some wood. I'm going to chop some wood about Coach Prime and his comments that he wants to run his program like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. And he said that the only difference between himself and those guys is that he played in the NFL. Now, he said that wasn't a shot at either one of them. He just said that he wants to build his programs the same way they do. And that's pretty smart because it probably means if you can succeed at it, you're going to win some championships along the way. Now, you're seeing the transfer portal exodus from Colorado right now. I think it's 51 players have hit the portal since he took the job or since a certain time frame in recent history. This isn't like all time. This is within the past several months. And everyone's quick to say, well, I guess Deion Sanders is just hard to play for. If he's trying to model his team after the teams that Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have put together, then that's probably true. He's hard to play for. What was the quote you had a few weeks back, Jake Rowe? You've got to have a reason. You've got to have a why at Georgia, because if you don't,
that was Amarius Mims.
Amarius Mims said that. It's hard as hell, and you've got to have another reason than just wanting to play at Georgia if you want to succeed at Georgia. And it seems like that's what Coach Prime wants to do at Colorado. It's not all fun and games at the spring game. And I don't know if he'll win a national championship at Colorado, but if Colorado is a stepping stone to a bigger, better Power 5 job and he gets to cut his teeth a little bit doing it the way that he's seen Saban and Kirby Smart do it, look out for Coach Prime, man, if he's actually able to do it. I want to put the cart before the horse here because he'll probably have about 18 players on scholarship if this transfer portal thing keeps going the way it is. And he can't hold on to anyone on the roster. But I like that quote from him, man. He's pretty serious about what he wants to do. It's not just all about the flash and all about the prime stuff. He's here and he means business in the Power 5 level.
I tell you what, I love him, and I always have, and I always will. Like, I mean, I remember, rec league football begging for number 21 because I wanted to be like Deion, even though I was playing guard. Okay. But
when I think Jake Rowe athlete, I think Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Prime time.
I loved him. I loved Deion. I was such a big fan. He's brave too, at the time, and it was great. Yeah. But Deion has cut his own legs out from under himself twice. All right, already. One, nobody wants a bunch of look at me guys. And Deion, all he does is he's a look at me guy. Everything he does, the cowboy hat, the calling himself Coach Prime, all that stuff. You can't preach, selflessness and team, and constantly being the look at me guy. Like people are going to take on the personality of their coach, which is fine if you are an elite cornerback. But he's not that anymore, and those players haven't seen him be that in a long time. And he's going to recruit well, and he's going to get guys. He's going to run guys off too because he's going to kind of put them in the shadow. And two, Roos brought it up on the board today. When you bring your son over to be quarterback and you basically name him the starter before he ever does anything,
that's the most anti Kirby Smart Nick Saban move that I could possibly think of.
100%.
If you want to say that that's what your direction is, Kirby Smart, I dare say, will probably
with some exceptions. That was a big exception.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I mean, Kirby Smart, I dare say, would make his son, carry water, even if he was a 5-star quarterback. He'd make the kid. I mean, I'm not. Listen, it is what it is, right? Shadur Sanders, and I said this on the board. He's a high-level player. I think he's a really good player. But you can't bring that expectation to people and ask everybody else to do it and earn your numbers and all this stuff. And then this guy's just penciled in before the first snap of spring practice. That's not going to sit well with anybody. I'm sorry.
Maybe he's just being transparent. All right. Who's taking the axe?
I'll take it. So I talked about on Sunday, stock up on non-football Georgia sports with baseball, softball, getting sweeps, and tennis, women's tennis winning the SEC tournament. Basketball, mentioned them briefly, but I'm going to mention them again because they added a really, really good player on Monday. Silas Damari Jr. out of Charlotte. Number 62 player in the country, number 10 point guard, according to the On3 industry ranking. On the in-house rankings have him even higher at 41 overall and 6 among players at his position. This kid can play. And Georgia needed a point guard. They had one true point guard on their roster for next year. Mike White saw that, a kid that had initially signed with USC back in the fall as a part of their highly rated recruiting class, backed out of his commitment there likely because Bronny James is headed there here before too long. But Silas was on the market. Georgia saw that opportunity and jumped on it and attacked it. And so they have added their 10th scholarship player for next season. They've got 3 spots left, several guys that they're still recruiting. Again, they added RJ Melendez and Jalen Deloach out of the transfer portal from Illinois and VCU. They signed 2 kids in the class of 2023, and then they've got 5 guys returning from last year's group. Mike White has Georgia basketball going in the right direction. And Silas Damari Jr., certainly a big part of the plans there, as he comes in as a freshman.
Mike White is cruising.
Matthew C. over here says that I don't see how the Shitter Sanders situation is any different from the Jamie Newman situation. Listen, they probably told Jamie Newman he could be the starter, but I don't remember Kirby Smart ever coming out before Jamie Newman took a snap in spring practice and saying Jamie Newman will start for this team this fall.
In a team meeting.
That's not that didn't happen. And
wasn't that the introductory meeting?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, in the intro
I'm
press.
bringing my luggage with me, and it's literally.
Kirby walks in their first meeting for the 2020 team and says, "Hey, that Jamie Newman, we got a guy coming here. His name's Jamie Newman. He's going to be our quarterback." Never, wouldn't happen. Apples and universal joints, man. Spark plugs.
The difference that I do see, and I'm not comparing the two at all, but when I see Dion coming into Colorado, I think he knows that team had a lot of scrubs on it. And I think that Kirby took the Georgia job and knew that he still had a lot of dudes on it. It didn't have the dudes that he wanted, tailor-picked, hand-picked to his liking. I just think Dion knew that he had to make an impact right away, and he knew that he was going to force a lot of guys out of the room by doing something that drastic. That was why I think.
And like Michael Keaton and the other guys, he don't want no scrubs.
Doesn't want them.
Man, Jamie Newman's got to be one of the biggest what ifs of Georgia football history.
I got to tell you guys, listen, I'm never going to get it, I don't think, and I don't think this is going to hurt my chances. But Instagram DMs got me this close one time. I thought I was going to get the Jamie Newman expose, and I haven't gotten there yet. But I really want to. I want to talk to him and tell part of his story, find out what was true.
Mark After Dark.
Yeah, I would love. Oh man, are you kidding me? I'd love to have Jamie Newman at Mark After Dark. It would kick anybody off who's got anything negative to say about him because you don't know what the kid's been through. Walk a mile in his shoes, Everlast says.
A hell of a lot of references in a span of 24 seconds, Jake.
Right, that's right. I'm full of them tonight. Listen, I got another one for my chopping wood tonight, and it's a Kid Cudi song. It's in Project X, and it's Pursuit of Happiness. And he says, "Tell me what you know about dreams. Tell me what you know about nightmares. Nothing." Okay. Listen, I may come across as like this hardened, angry, man
that?
can't be penetrated with the sharpest of knives. Okay.
Where is this?
You said that.
I give off, but I'm a big softy. All right. I'm a big softy. And my favorite part about the NFL draft every year is watching people like Tack McKinley go ape over just like, find me. He's like, find me. He hadn't even signed a contract yet. He's like, find me, because he says the F-bomb at the contract at the combine. Just goes bananas.
Find me later, man. Find me later.
Because that's how big of the dreams that come true. All of the injuries, all of the broken fingers and broken legs, and the concussions, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the you can't do it, the you can do it, de-recruitment, everything all culminates into one night for the first round guys. And then for everybody else from there on out, you celebrate with family members like you never have before. You see your girlfriend get shoved out of the way by your mom. That wasn't a good omen. You see Russell Wilson's girlfriend go horse face in front of everybody. We know why he traded her in. It's incredible. I'm telling you, watching dreams come true make people do crazy stuff. And I love it. It is my favorite part about the NFL draft. I soak all of that up every time because it really is cool. I've said this before. I have a hard time listening to fans really get after players because I know that 99% of those fans, if they had to go through one day of preseason camp, would be like some of those people that get on Naked and Afraid sometimes. It'd be like 1 hour and I'm done. Bring the helicopter, airlift me out of here. We need an extraction. But, you know, those guys go through oftentimes, you know, 60 preseason camp practices and, you know, spring practices and battle back from major injuries. It's incredibly cool. And I enjoy watching that part. So Kid Cudi, Dreams, what you know about nightmares? Nothing.
You should sing it. Come on, Jay.
I don't like to embarrass myself, but it was in that movie Project X. So I'm going to go have a good cry, call some lawyers.
Okay.
All right. Tonight, I'm going to chop wood about a couple of the Georgia NFL draft prospects since I wasn't here for that talk in the beginning of the show. To me, the guys I'm chopping tonight on are Warren McClendon and Chris Smith. And I think both of those guys are going to be undervalued by the NFL scouts. And I think both of those guys have potential to go on and have very long and successful careers in the NFL. And Warren McClendon, I think, more so than Chris. Chris is a good player. I think Warren has a chance to be a guy who hangs around the league for a long time, whether it's as a backup, whether it's as a starter, a 5-position guy, in my opinion. And I've said that about him since he came out of high school. I love Warren McClendon's game, and I think that he's the kind of guy who just shows up, does his job. You don't hear a lot about Warren McClendon, and that's a good thing if you're an offensive lineman. So I'm rooting for Warren McClendon and all these guys. I mean, I covered all of them, but Warren McClendon, I think, is a guy whose stock is maybe not as high as it should be, and I think that he's going on to a big thing.
9-Iron Dog taking us out tonight. Let me tell you, I put this Master shirt on because I didn't know if Jake Rowe's internet was going to work tonight. So I wanted to make sure that we were represented just in case. We were like, I read a stat the other day on the Braves. I didn't realize this, that dating back to the 2018 season, I don't know if y'all saw this when I shared it. They have not lost. This is from Nakahoma Nation. Since the start of the 2018 season, the Braves' longest in-season losing streak is 4 games. They're the only team in MLB over that span that's not lost at least 5 games in a row at some point during the season. And I want us to have a similar stat on the Georgia show here. We can't have a stretch of shows without Masters gear. So just trying to keep it alive.
Hey man, Braves have mounted a furious comeback tonight. I don't want to start talking live on there. I did it on Bill Shanks one time, and I think Bill was worried about catching an FCC fine. He shut me down. I think they almost hung up on me. But yeah, so Braves mounting a furious comeback. Maybe got a chance to go ahead here pretty soon. So we'll see.
You're pulling a Brent Musburger.
Yeah.
Y'all have a great night. Thank you for listening to the Georgia Show. Premium membership still up for grabs over at DawgsHQ.com. We don't just talk here. We have premium stuff, juicy nuggets that we don't share for free right here.
Big things popping at DawgsHQ.
Yeah, get on over to.
You can't stop.
Is that another reference?
You can't stop what's coming.
Get on over to the message board and hang out with us. Enjoy the draft. Like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We'll be right back here Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time to talk about the draft. Y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy the draft. What do you know about dreams? Jake Rowe, Kid Cudi. Peace.